Hello and welcome to another edition of Meet the Red Cross. I'm Dave Griffith, the Executive Director of the Heart of Missouri chapter. And joining me on my show today, I have two of our newest board members. Typically on this show, I have a volunteer and a board member. But today in this month, we are installing 5 new board members onto our board of directors, and I wanted to bring 2 of those in for you to meet today. Our first guest is Beth Schmidt, and Beth is really no stranger to the Red Cross. She's been a volunteer. As a matter of fact, she was the co-chair of one of our chapter's largest fundraisers, and at that time was called the Heart of a Hero. And on the second half of the show today, we're going to have Hank Stratman will be joining us. And Hank is a decorated veteran of the Army of 33 years and retired as a Major General, and is now has a business here in Jefferson City, and he and his family are located and live in Callaway County. So we'll be visiting with both of them during this time. But Beth, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
What we do in Meet the Red Cross, and for each one of them, we'd like to get to know who you are and kind of how you came here. So you might just tell us a little bit about Beth Schmidt.
Okay. Well, I've been in Jefferson City for 14 years. We moved here from Jacksonville, Florida, and that's my hometown, and that's where I began my Red Cross experience. I was a Navy wife at that time. My husband was working at the Naval Hospital in Jacksonville, and I used to volunteer my time in the evening when he could be home with my children. I would go work as a Red Cross volunteer in the emergency room and assist families for whatever they needed while their loved one was being cared for in the emergency room. And at the time, the auxiliary at the hospital was run actually by the Red Cross. And that was the case in most of the naval hospitals that we were associated in prior to that time. When my husband was at the Bethesda Naval Hospital for a period of time, the admiral's wife there would always encourage all of the physician spouses to please get involved in the American Red Cross. You'll never regret it. She used to say that at every occasion, and that really rang home to me. And so I thought, well, at my first possible opportunity, when my children were old enough and schedules permitted, I would do so. And so that's when and where it was.
Well, I know in 1997, I think that's when you began your involvement with the American Red Cross. Mm-hmm. What kind of changes have you seen with the Red Cross over that period of time? We've gone through a number of CEOs, and there have been some structure changes that have happened, but are there commonalities that we have between what it was like in 1997 when you started and what it's like today in 2013?
Well, the commonalities is I think the heart of the Red Cross are the volunteers, and you can't meet better folks than that. And we have seen a lot of changes. A lot of people have come and gone through the offices. A lot of them have stayed the same, like Evie. And through the years, I've been very proud to be a part of the Red Cross here in Central Missouri, and they have grown. They have become more and more organized. It's extremely impressive. Their board has grown, and I think functions at a very high level from what I have been told. And seeing them out in the community makes me very, very proud to be one of their supporters.
Well, one of the big events that you actually helped get started here in Jefferson City was the Heart of a Hero. We changed the name of that last year to the Lifesaver Awards, and really trying to align ourselves a lot with the St. Louis region, because they've had their Lifesaver Awards there for a number of years, and I felt like that was really emblematic of what we do every day with the Red Cross. But let's go back, I think 16 years ago. Let's go back to that time, and how did you get this thing started?
Well, it was like anything else with the Red Cross. It was a team effort. That's the nice thing about being a Red Cross volunteer, is you never have to go it alone. There's always a great group to help you along the way. Dee Dee Shelton was also very instrumental and co-chaired that with me for a number of years. And the reason that they chose the name at the time is because it was closely right after 9/11. And some other Red Cross chapters, even in our state, I believe down in Springfield, had such an event. And so we all tagged on to the same name and the same idea. But just as events kind of evolve over time, they need to change. They need to be, freshened up. They need to be tightened up. We need to look at expenses and see, are we making as much money as we possibly can, since this is a fundraiser. But at the same time, the mission's the same, to honor volunteers, honor heroes, per se, or lifesavers in our community.
Well, I know in one of the issues that, because I served on the Heart of a Hero, I served on that committee before I came to work for the Red Cross, and I noticed one of the things that was always a challenge for us, and is those people that are heroes don't like to be called heroes. They all have, and every time you ask them about what they do, I think each one of them has the same answer, and that's, I just did what, it was my job, or that was the right thing to do, and so I did it. Your experience in a lot in the Center for Pain Management is who your husband works for.
Mid-Missouri
Anesthesia Group
/ Center for Pain Management. Yes.
That group really has been a strong supporter of the Red Cross over the years.
Yes, they have. They've been a very proud supporter. A number of their physicians in that group are military veterans, my husband being one, Dr. Lucio being another, and he's with Center for Pain Management, as well as Dr. Jim Huff with Center for Pain Management, also from the Navy, and Mishich, Huff, Schmidt, and there was 4 of them, yes, that came straight out of the service and came to work here in mid-Missouri. So they wanted to be able to honor military members in the community. And obviously since 9/11, I think every community in the United States has become keenly aware of military families in their community and the sacrifices that they make. And so they wanted to be among the first to stand up and lend their support.
Well, and I think that's one of the key things that as board members, and where you are the most influence to us is your position in the community, and I think leveraging those relationships that we have, and really educating people about what the American Red Cross does. That's something that's key to our mission delivery, especially with volunteers. How do you see your role as a board member just coming on? How do you see, and what do you see you doing to help the Heart of Missouri Chapter Board of Directors?
Well, I'm happy to be an ambassador to, of course, represent the Red Cross and help fundraise for the Red Cross. But I think I will bring something to the table with my 18 years of volunteer experience. When I first came here to Jefferson City, my husband's newly out of the Navy, so I was finding myself, I was very proud of the military ties we have, but I also wanted to be able to continue to be supportive to the military community, so I became an Armed Forces Services volunteer, taking the pager on a scheduled basis, where I could answer the pager and answer the calls of the families that needed to get a hold of their military member, or vice versa, confirm messages as needed to get a military member home if there was an illness in the family, a death in the family, or pass a message of a family situation that maybe didn't require their presence, but required their notification. And the military strongly depends on the Red Cross to provide accurate information and to check and recheck that information with the physicians to get the medical status, or with a funeral home to see that there is indeed a funeral planned and the cause of death and things like that. That's pertinent information that the military will need to know, and to decide whether or not they're going to let their service member come, because it's often, it happens in their station somewhere on the other side of the world, and they want to get them home, but they want to make sure they verify.
Correct. In following up just on your service to armed forces, the volunteering that you did for them, as you think back on how long you did that, is there one particular story that really sticks out in your mind where you feel like that you as a volunteer made a significant difference in one of those families' lives, or a story that kind of sticks out in your mind, that how important the Red Cross is to those military members and their families?
Yeah, I think every phone call was important. Every phone call. And most of the time, unfortunately, it was a message of someone that was at end of life. and the family desperately wanted their service person notified, and they really wanted that phone call back. And they were always so grateful. I mean, you have to tell them it could take up to 24 hours till you'll hear something. But very often it didn't take that long. And they were so grateful, and it was such a good feeling to know that you've helped provide some kind of comfort to the family, and that they had a person that they could call by name and ask for any further information. And they could call back the next day and the same thing. Over time, I know the Red Cross has centralized things quite a bit, and so we don't carry the pagers here anymore. And the calls come in, and they're done through Fort Sill and through Virginia. And I'm sure that's more efficient. And but at the same time, I miss the personal connection. But it was a very gratifying experience. I'm very happy to help any service members, families if they need it. And as a matter of fact, that's another role that I've recently started doing for the Red Cross, is going out and giving presentations on behalf of the Red Cross. The presentation is called Get to Know Us Before You Need Us. And it's specifically geared to military families pre-deployment, so they know how to get a hold of us, and the types of messages that we do send, the types of messages we don't send, and what to expect from the Red Cross, what's a reasonable expectation. And they're very relieved to know that they have some kind of lifeline in between their service person and their family.
We've talked about that a few times on this show with military people that have actually utilized that service of messaging. And I know that here locally we still do get phone calls, and I encourage anybody here in Jefferson City that does need to get a hold of their military loved ones, that they can go through our office, and we'll match them up with the right people. It's being done at a regional basis, but a few of those that have called have been personal friends of mine. Mm-hmm. and I've told them, I said, you know, this is the number I want you to call, but if you don't get satisfaction, or if you got more questions, please call me back.
Right.
None of them ever call me back. Each time the Red Cross is taking care of those folks, and you're right. Most of the time, it's not a pleasant call, but sometimes they're very life-saving calls as well. But Beth, the one thing that I forgot to talk about right at the very beginning, and I wanted to, was your employer. St. Mary's is who you work for, yeah. And I think it's important for our audience to know that it's the employers for our board members that are employed. We take some of their time, but tell me about just very briefly how St. Mary's is supporting you in this effort.
St. Mary's has been very supportive. I believe I am the only one currently serving on the board from St. Mary's. My role at St. Mary's is I am the physician liaison and the physician recruiter. So I totally enjoy my job. And so I have access. I feel like I'm working amongst my friends, because I do know many of the physicians or their spouses. And so it's a pure joy. But the nice thing about having them as friends is I can also ask them to help volunteer when needed. And they've been very generous with their time, and St. Mary's other employees have been very supportive as well.
Well, Beth, I welcome you to the board. I'm honored to have you serving on our board, and please pass along to Brent Vanconia there at St. Mary's. We appreciate him giving you the time to help us in fulfilling our mission.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hank Stratman is going to be joining us for the second half of our show. Don't go away. Welcome back to Meet the Red Cross. I'm Dave Griffith, the Executive Director of the Heart of Missouri Chapter, and joining us for the second half of our show is Hank Stratman. And Hank is a decorated veteran who now owns a new business here in town called Warwick Square, and he's going to talk to us about that. But Hank, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
We start off each one of these shows by talking about your background, and with 33 years in the Army, you've got, we could probably take this entire half hour to talk about that, but just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'd like to start off I'm a Lincoln University graduate. Graduated in '73, just as the Vietnam War was winding down, from a small rural town, Vienna, Marys County. Joined the Army with no real intentions of making a career, but I wanted to be a high school coach and teacher, and especially a phys ed teacher. But when I got in the Army, I found out that what the Army does all the time, they call it training, is really teaching and coaching and teamwork and all the things that I thrived on in my younger days at school. So I came in as an artillery officer. Our initial focus was in the European theater. We had the big nuclear deterrent standoff with the Soviet Union, what they now call the Cold War era. Following about 10 years of that, a short tour to Korea, and then spent 2 tours to, I was involved as a battalion commander deploying my battalion from Germany to the first Gulf War to liberate Kuwait from Saddam Hussein and Iraq's invasion in 1990. So that was my first real exposure to the role that the Red Cross plays in supporting the many soldiers and their spouses, especially their spouses, because this was our first major military operation since Vietnam. And it was a big steep learning curve for many people, especially in the area. Families especially weren't as well prepared as they are today for long-term deployment. So that was really the highlight of my younger days as a junior officer, being a battalion commander in a combat situation. And I'm most proud is I brought all my soldiers back alive. Shortly after that, when President Clinton was in office, we got involved in peacekeeping and peacemaking in Bosnia. You're very familiar with that. I was part of the initial entry force. When we went in there as a full colonel, I set up my general officers meetings with the Serb, Muslim, and Croat military leaders, and arranged all the rules and regulations about how they were going to behave or we were going to kick their butts, and we did on occasion. That was a great experience. And then 2 years later, as a general officer, I was sent back to Sarajevo to be responsible for operations for the whole multinational force. And we had the good fortune of hosting the first presidential summit there in Sarajevo, which was attended by 39 heads of state. So that was a great experience. Then, of course, 9/11 happened with the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and the flight that crashed in Pennsylvania. That really shifted our total focus, the military's total focus, to the Mideast, 100%. At that time, I was assigned to be the Deputy Commanding General for Support, 3rd Army. I was a senior 1-star, going on to be a 2-star at that time. And my job was to support military special forces operations in Afghanistan as they took down the Taliban and search for Osama bin Laden at the very get-go. And at the same time, in anticipation of President Bush's decision to attack into Iraq, get the theater structure set there in Kuwait for the buildup of forces and the flow of equipment and supplies through the airports, seaports, build command and control centers, get a field distribution system in place. So I oversaw those operations. It got pointed out, it wasn't a one-man show. It's all about a huge team, and your military's got the best team in the world. It's probably one of the elements of the U.S. government that is organized, can make things happen, and they have the capability to do so.
Well, I know you retired as a major general. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Just very briefly, and I don't know that we can do it briefly or not, but your career started in 1973.
Yes, sir.
And it ended
2006.
2006. So over that period of time, first off, I guess, what made you want to go in as an officer, and how did that progress into you becoming a general and having that?
Well, most officers come out of the Reserve Officer Training Corps program, not West Point. Many people think West Point's the primary producer of officers. They're not. It's the ROTC program. When I was in college, Vietnam was really a major effort for our country at the time. And there was a draft, and then they went to the lottery system, and I got a very low lottery number, so I knew I was serving. So I stayed in ROTC, and then decided to give a shot on active duty. My ROTC instructors recommended I go combat arms, artillery, infantry, or armor, because those were where they wanted the most talented officers. And I think they recognized early on my potential, but it was up to me to make it happen. So big kudos for their ROTC program, and it's still alive and well, producing great officers.
It really is. And Lincoln University's got a strong ROTC program.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Well, let's say you came here to Jefferson City after your retirement, and you decided you looked at what many people in Jefferson City will know as Warwick Square, or Warwick Village.
Warwick Village, yes.
And you changed the name of that. Tell us about that particular project.
Well, first off, one reason I came back to Jefferson City, we've always intended to do that throughout my career, was I have 8 other brothers and sisters and their families, and they all live somewhere in the state of Missouri. And so our intention all along was to come back and grow old with my brothers and sisters and all the other relatives I have in the community. I have a very large extended family here in Jefferson City and St. Louis, Kansas City, and surrounding areas. So after we got settled in our retirement home, I was kind of bored, having been used to a very high up tempo in my last couple assignments in the Mideast, and noticed that the village, Warwick Village, was on this last pretty decrepit state. It was about to be torn down. The bank foreclosure property, we wanted to get rid of it, and I was looking for something to do that would, number one, help me get integrated into the community, get known, contribute to the community, and become part of this society, because I've been used to being part of a military establishment, military lifestyle, to where there's a lot of multiple tasking going on all the time. That's what I'm very accustomed to. So I really wanted to use that mechanism to get known and get involved, to be part of this community called Jefferson City. We have a nice farm out in Callaway County that we retreat to when we want to get away or chill out a little bit. But other than that, we spend most of our time at Warwick Village. Now, Warwick Village, we took the old village, which was a hotel motel complex. We turned the hotel into apartments, real nice upscale, everything new to code. We took the lobby and turned that into a coffee shop. And as you know, Brewhouse Coffee's doing very well. And then the cottages that surround the motel part, which were built in 1935, we've turned those into retail sites. Again, totally gutted them, totally rebuilt, new. So when you walk in one, it's like you're in a brand new building, a new home, or very modern. So we're trying to, and we are creating what we call a destination point for people to come, either to live, socialize at the coffee shop, have some lunch, get their hair done, maybe even a massage, go shopping. Right now we have a gift shop, Finishing Touches, that's doing very well. And most recently we have a office being occupied by a builder and property management company called Regal. So we're not there yet, but we're making big progress, and I got 2 or 3 more units to go, and then I can maybe go fishing and golfing a little bit more often.
Well, I think that's one of the things we've been able to see here just in the past few years, well, maybe 10 years, that more of the older properties, especially in downtown Jefferson City, there's been a renovation plan that's been going on, and really throughout the city of Jefferson, there's been that same reclaiming of a lot of properties that have history. Warwick Village has got a strong history that dates back 50 or 60, 70 years. And you, I guess a couple of months ago, you were featured in a magazine out of the Lake of the Ozarks where they talked about...
The Ozark Press did a very good... first off, we were visited by a historian who's a guy named Scully from Illinois, who travels the Midwest and indicated this is one of the few remaining 1935-era motel complexes. And so he wrote up a real nice historical article on that. Steve Veal, the Historic City of Jefferson president, featured us in a little follow-on article complimenting us on what we're doing and our vision for the building. So So yes, the Ozark Press published it, and they need to be commended for doing a great job.
Well, I think some of those old pictures that we look at, I only moved to Jefferson City just about 30 years ago, but so I don't remember when Highway 50 used to run right in front of there, and it was a gas station and kind of a respite, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I'm told Harry Truman. I know Harry Truman spent when he was a state senator running for office, stayed at the Warwick Village. So it was a key intersection. It was a landmark, and a lot of people still say, coming up from Vienna, Lynn, Loose Creek, driving up, that was the first major indication that they were getting close to Jeff City. When I get back to when we bought it too, one of the things that cost us, our business analysis was, there was talk about a Walmart going in out on the east end, which happened. There's talk about the federal courthouse being built, which was built on Lafayette Street. And there's talk about the Lafayette Exchange, which is going to happen next year. And then the prison development, which is the last big major event to happen. And there's, you know where that is, it's still being worked very hard with the state and the city, et cetera. So we think it's a good location, a good investment, long-term for us, and we see it as an investment. Well, I'm not philanthropic, it's an investment. And my wife and I do much of the work ourselves in order to afford it, and we do it at our time schedule whenever we can pay the bills and
Well, I know that to be a fact, and I think if you ever have any concrete that needs to be laid, Hank is an expert in the concrete field. So, sadly we're starting to run out of time, but I'd like for you to share with me, if you would, in our closing, really what you see as your role as a member of the board of directors for the Heart of Missouri chapter, and how you feel, given your background and expertise, how you can be of real benefit to us.
I've given that quite a bit of thought, Dave, and I'm not really good at fundraising, but I think I am very good at building teams and establishing teamwork and encouraging volunteers and thanking volunteers for their work, or maybe helping recruit volunteers by going around and talking to them and encouraging them to get involved, much like today's military members are volunteers, and they're serving a cause much bigger than themselves. And you can now do the same thing by supporting the Red Cross. You can be part of something that's much bigger than you and contribute to your community and give back. And that's one reason I joined the board. And it was also hard to say no to a friend when he asked me to come on board.
Well, Hank, thank you for being on our show. Thank you for your service to our country, and I'm looking forward to serving with you on our board of directors.
It's an honor to be part of the Red Cross.
I want to thank you for joining us today for this edition of Meet the Red Cross. We'll be back again with you again next month. And if you've got any questions, or if you would like to volunteer or donate to the American Red Cross, you can contact us at 573-635-1132 or stop by our office at 431 East McCarty Street. Thank you again, and until next time, thank you for support of the Red Cross.